if you're in the middle of space and you're manning a lighthouse, and yeah, that's sure to drive you nuts.
Beacon 23 was strangely reminiscent of Fifth Passenger. Check it out.
Beacon 23 had a small cast.
Beacon 23 is an example of scientists not doing science great.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fallingtower's Watch the First podcast in which we watch first episode of a series so that you don't have to.
But you still can. Yay.
Sometimes we also do 3 takes of that beginning, but you'll never know. All right.
4.
Yeah. So as you may have guessed, today we are doing Beacon 23 on Apple TV Plus.
MGM Plus.
That's what it was. It was MGM Plus. But you can see the first episode on Amazon Prime.
Video. I saw it on Apple TV.
I watched it on Sling. It was on Sling.
It's on Prime Video. We're all in different places.
MGM Plus, everybody, is where you can view it. So check that out. If you'd like us to review a show, this is Sci-Fi Month. So in the comments below, just type WTF and a sci-fi show, and we will review it. Maybe. So please be sure to give this video a like. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Give us a 5-star rating if you're listening in, and a nice review. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get up into this one because we've got writer, director, producer, cameraman extraordinaire. Nowadays they call that content creator, Scott Baker.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
So good to have you.
Good to have you back.
Yeah, another thrilling sci-fi mystery unfolding episode, like when we did the Silo.
And that's just to watch the first podcast. You know him from Duke University. His name is Dr. Muhammad Noor.
Hello, always a pleasure to be on Falling Towers. Watch the first of things.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, avid He-Man fan, despite what my shirt might suggest.
Yeah, He-Man, I'll get you, yeah.
He-Man! Okay.
I'll get you next time.
Love Skeletor memes. People listening in are like, why did they all just do Skeletor impressions? Because it's fun and it's good for your health.
And no one can do a good He-Man impression.
Yeah. I don't know. All right, here's the point. The point is Muhammad's going to tell us what we're going to do first.
Oh, I don't know. I think we're in a predicament. Meaning we have to predict what each other thought about the show without giving away whether we liked it.
MGM Plus, was it? I mean, that's what it says in the back. You're right, but we watched it on Amazon Prime. It's available to view on Amazon Prime. You are very correct on that. It's my favorite part of the show, Dr. Noor. Thank goodness you know. It's where we make our fun predictions, of course. Scott and I have known each other for, wow, it's going to be like 8 years or something. 9 years.
Wasn't the thingy that we shot over the thingy that was like 2014, wasn't it?
Yeah, wow. So we're coming up on 10 years. It was summer of 2014, late summer, I think like July or August. So we know each other pretty well. Muhammad and I know each other fairly well for a few years. Scott and Muhammad know each other fairly well for a few years. So we're going to be able to predict what each other thought of this show. Muhammad, I think this is tough. Honestly, this is tough for me. I think that you're going to be tepid at best on this. Tepid at best. Scott, I think you're going to be a little warmer on this. You're going to find the good in this thing. You're going to think, wasn't so bad. That smirk tells me I'm way off.
I was thinking that too.
That smirk tells me I'm way off. But you're going to say, look, you like the sci-fi elements, you like some of the stuff, but you're going to have some qualms with it, I think, because you're quite the sci-fi thriller connoisseur. What do you think, Muhammad?
I mean, we see that Fifth Passenger then right behind Scott there, so that's a good.
And on his breast.
I was thinking the same. I was thinking the same from Scott. That like when he smiled, I was like, yeah, no, he's not gonna like this one. It's below the 5. I actually think for you, Ryan, it's also gonna be below the 5. I don't think you love this. I don't want to give the whys because I know people always say that's giving away what I thought of it. I'll just say it's below the 5 and leave it at that.
Whoa. Wow.
Okay, well, I think Muhammad rather liked it because it's a good, serious, dramatic science fiction with some thrilling, mysterious stuff going on to untangle. Uh, 7-ish, and I'd say Ryan a little bit lower, maybe 5, 6-ish. Didn't quite strike the chord. Yeah.
Muhammad,
we know Ryan loves Lena Headey.
Yeah.
I did not factor that in.
Yeah. Muhammad, did we get your prediction for Scott?
Yeah, I said for both of y'all below the 5.
Oh, both. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So those are our predictions, everybody. We all seem to be hovering between the 4 to 7 range in our predictions for all of us. It seems somewhere around there. So make your predictions now. Do you think we're spot on? Do you think we're going too high, too low? Make your predictions. Take your time in the live chat or in the comments below while you're making your predictions. Dr. Noor here is going to do what he does very well, which is buy us a little bit of time by telling us what this show is even about.
This covered, but not like that horrible website. On lonely Beacon 23, an approaching ship is unable to be warned away and explodes, leaving one survivor in stasis. The resident of the beacon revives Aster, that's her name, and discovers she was coming to this beacon to study some minerals. The resident claims to be named Solomon, but turns out he was lying, and Solomon is missing or dead. Aster imprisons him and sees he's experiencing some sort of severe PTSD. Nonetheless, she makes a deal with him to let him go in exchange for finding the minerals. They do find the minerals, but Aster does not free him. The episode ends with an armed crew mysteriously arriving and forcing their way onto the station.
You know, the picture behind us just now made me think, what if Cersei is AI? Because it's gotten her pull away. What if the big reveal is that she's AI? It just made me think of that when I just saw that.
If we saw her touch something.
Well, she was locked up. Her ankle was locked up to the thingy, you know.
That's true. Yes,
then why
I mean, she could be like an android, but
yeah. Well, just because of this, her flow or Thanos is popping in. I don't know. All right. Yeah, so everybody, you still have a little bit of time to make your predictors. What do you think? Dr. Noor is revving up his. His fists of fury. Either that or he's getting ready for that cardiac machine. Clear, Muhammad.
Yeah, clear.
his predictor cuffs.
Yeah. What I'm actually getting ready for is my favorite part of the show, which is called Expectation, where we spend a little bit of time on what you expected before you saw the show, and much more time on what you actually getchin as you watch the show. Or as Ryan likes to say, far more eloquently than I ever could, we like to compare and contrast what we expected and what we actually got after we watched the show.
I do.
In the first part, we don't give away what we thought. We just say what we expected.
I get my eloquence from Skeletor. He-Man. Okay. Let's do it. Starting with Muhammad Noor, before you watched this first episode of Beacon 23 entitled Corbinik, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Still don't know what that means.
Yeah, maybe it was one of the minerals. Before you watched this first episode, Dr. Noor, what did you expect, if anything?
Very, very, very little. As you might remember, our mutual friend Melissa Longo had recommended it, and she noted that Lena Headey was in it. So knew that much. I think we knew it was sci-fi because it's a sci-fi month. So then it was recommended for a sci-fi month. Beyond that, like absolutely nothing. I'd never heard of it, you know, and I had never even heard of MGM Plus. I remember even talking to people and they're like, wait, there's an MGM Plus?
I know. I even got it wrong in the intro because I didn't think that was a real thing.
Yeah, right? So basically absolutely nothing except the fact sci-fi, Lena Headey. That was it. Didn't know anything beyond that at all. And recent.
What about you, sci-fi producer Scott Baker? What did you expect, if anything?
Exactly the same. I didn't even know Lena Headey was in it until I clicked on the webpage and saw the graphic that's sitting there behind you before I hit the play button to watch the episode, and assumed it was sci-fi because you told me it was sci-fi. And very sci-fi looking poster. So I was like, okay, maybe it's Game of Thrones in space. But it turned out to not be Game of Thrones in space.
Ooh, whoa! What a teaser! Everybody, stick around for the rest of that. They're like, wait a second, it's not. I gotta tune in longer for this one. I'll tell all y'all what I expected, if anything. I'm about in the same boat as you guys. In fact, Beacon 23 is one of those things that totally doesn't sound like sci-fi, so that it must be, because that sci-fi things kind of have like a name and a number oftentimes. Scott knows. And they like things like there's also
Station 11.
Right, Station 11. What was the British one too that we saw? Also, that one had a number 9, I think, in it.
Yeah, I remember.
Anyway,
I can't remember what it's called. It's like a year ago now.
Yeah,
Cloverfield 9 or whatever.
So I think I'd heard, and I thought her name was Lena Headey. I thought it was pronounced Headey. So let us know, everybody in the comments and live chat, if it's Hetty or Headey. But either way, I know it's not Lena, it's Lena. That I know for sure. I had even forgotten. I had heard that she was in it only because the second she popped up, and I was like, "Oh, is that Cersei?" And I was like, "Wait, I think I heard that. I think I knew that." I think when Melissa and everybody else made the suggestions, they mentioned her.
Yeah.
And yes, I think she's the best actor of the last decade. I think she and Giancarlo Esposito, if I may. I think those are the two that I've been personally most impressed with. I think that Cersei Lannister is the best female character written, and I think that Lena here is the best actress to portray that, and the best actress, the one I've been most impressed with in the last 10 years. Anyway, so that's what we expected, Dr. Noor. However, what did you actually get?
It's the pencils down moment, right?
Oh, yes. Pencils down, everybody. If you haven't finished your predictions, you got to finish them in the next 2 seconds, because we're going to give it away.
2, 1. Actually, it's funny. I watched the first half solo, and I watched the second half with my son. And it's funny. It was actually, I had it frozen there with a picture of Lena Headey on there, or Hetty, whatever her name is. And he was like, "Hey, it's Cersei." I was like, "Oh, good. Recognized her right away, too." That was my reaction. Like, I confess I was pretty bored for a lot of it. So I'll tell you what I thought. I thought the set design was quite interesting. I mean, I like that aspect to it in terms of just the layout of this place, and it seemed like there was some weird gravitational thing. Like, it seemed like they were flipping sometimes as they were going to certain places, but it happened really fast, so I couldn't quite get that. But it was interesting. The music was good, and my son Adam pointed that out as well. Just generally speaking, I felt like the cinematics to it were pretty good. The depiction of PTSD felt very believable too. I mean, the actor, I don't know the actor, the gentleman who's here in the picture, but I mean, I thought he did a very, very good job portraying like this PTSD. Like, you really felt it coming from there. But it was just boring. I mean, I looked at my watch multiple times there. It felt like, especially for the first half, almost nothing was happening. Like, oh my God. I think part of it was just there was so few people. So it was, if there's few people, like, you need a lot more to be happening to keep your attention. And this was just like 2 people kind of chatting, and there was occasionally the little robot going beep 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 until it started talking later. So it actually got weirder when it started talking. Found it just kind of hard. Felt a little hard to follow at points. Not that I thought, like, not that there was just minor things. It's like, wait, what is that? This? What's going on there? The science was terrible. Not unusual, but like I said, the second half was a little bit better. But overall, I was not that happy. I remember coming away at the very end. I said to my son something like, "That was pretty boring," and he was like, "Yep, IMDb agrees with you. It says it's a 5.4." I'm like, "Ooh." So I'll stop there. We can dig in more after you guys go. So why don't you go, Scott?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think interesting concept. On paper, I think it's more interesting than it was in execution. Not to say that, like, the filmmakers or anybody directly involved did a bad job, but it just sort of just didn't kind of play out. Like, the mystery was kind of like, oh, who are these people? And I was kind of like, I was thinking like, okay, maybe she's an escaped prisoner or something like that, and then it turned out that wasn't the thing. And then that was cool that it kind of kept me guessing a couple times, figuring out who was who and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it wasn't terribly like the characters, like you said, they weren't really like compelling as far as like I really like connect with these people, and like Lena Headey's a great actress, but the character wasn't written super great to give us a lot to like go after, sink our teeth into. And yeah, the science stuff, and then that's the stuff that's super easy to kind of like pull you out of a sci-fi film like that, where it's like, oh, here's this rock, and she sets it down and she walks away. It was like, what, like, and then she's operating on the rock, flicking it away, and it's glowing, and she's just using her bare hands and she's flicking at it, and you're like, it's the Prometheus, where they stick their finger in the black goo kind of thing, and it's like it's so easy, that kind of stuff, to like, oh, let's put it in a little chamber and she's doing it so that she doesn't actually touch it. And so no, but all these rocks are just in a mesh bag and she's slinging them over her shoulder and walking around with what could be like you see a rock that's glowing blue, and my first instinct is like, oh my god, that thing is radioactive. Like it's probably got uranium or plutonium or something in it, and I don't want that within 50 feet of me. I don't know what the fall off is on radioactive chemicals as far as distance, but yeah, I don't want that thing within 50 feet of me. I'm not going to go up and touch that like radioactive, thing that I don't know anything about. And then you're just kind of like, that stuff just sort of like pulls you out of the story like a super quick, despite how good everything else could be in it. But I mean, I think there's some parts of the mystery and the story. It's hard to like not watch an episode like this that kind of sets up a story and has a mystery built in, to not want to be like, oh, I'm just going to keep watching it because I want to find out like what happens next and who this thing is or something.
The teaser there at the end.
Interesting. Yeah. So now I'm wondering if a lot of people are saying plutonium's not a real mineral or whatever, since Pluto is not a planet anymore, do people say, well, then we shouldn't have it named after a non-planet? Anyway, I'll tell all of y'all what.
Titanium. Titan's not a planet.
You're right. Neither is Europanium, right? So Scott Baker, he also likes to Europanium. Never mind. I don't even know where I'm going with that. So the point is, I'm sitting here listening to you guys, and I'm thinking probably the same thing everybody else is thinking watching this, which is you guys just didn't get it. I don't know, if you watched it closely, but you guys obviously didn't get what the writers were trying to send you. I mean, neither did I. I thought it was bad, but because it was. But that's kind of where I am with that. I might even be lower than you guys on my opinion of this. I guess the acting was fine. I wasn't particularly shocked by Lena doing her role. I was like, oh, right, she's great. Oh, this is amazing. But I wasn't blown away. And I don't know if it was just like it didn't fit the character, or if she just didn't have much to work with or what. But I certainly did not feel the same awe that I felt when watching her play Cersei, when she would just command every single scene she was in,
totally,
regardless of whether she even had a line. Sometimes she wouldn't even have a line and she'd be just in the back of a room and she was controlling that entire scene. That's what you're looking at. Not in this case. So not only was it boring, but there was nothing to the story all the way until the end.
Yeah.
The one little morsel of slight heightened excitement or what's going to happen at the very end wasn't even compelling or interesting or scary at all. Like I was like, that's what the 50 minutes led us to. That's not enough. That's not good enough. That's not going to get me to be like, oh my God, the other 48 minutes were totally worth it. Cause now I'm just like beside myself. And then credits rolled and I was like, ouch, I'm embarrassed for you.
What
No
was
offense.
what was the thing? What was the thing that it was leading up to?
The stormtroopers arriving.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah.
People came in. But and I did want to point out, Muhammad, when you mentioned that your son joined you for the second half, my first thought when you said that was he was going to say, while watching that second half, he was going to say, huh, what's this? And what's that? And you'd be like, bro, I saw the first half and I don't know either. You know, like you can't even, like you would think that if he's watching the second half, you would have more understanding of that episode than he did. But I bet you guys were even.
No, I was going to bring this up in the detail discussion. I felt like that was one of the problems with this episode, that it didn't, I mean, there was so many things unexplained. Like there was like nothing explained basically. Like there was so like, okay, why is she in a stasis pod in a ship? Why was he alone on the stage? Like why? I don't even really understand why that ship blew up. They said something like there was some dark matter or whatever, but like dark matter only interacts with regular matter gravitationally. So like, why would that make the ship blow up? Like there was like everything. But I mean, it seemed like there was no reveal on almost anything at all, except that he's not Solomon, you know, and why was she be coming in stasis to this place? Like what? That's a really weird way.
Right. And you know, speaking of that, you know, because to me, I'm like, hey, if it's bad science, you know, we can live with that. We've been watching sci-fi our whole lives. Or if it's got a lot of mysteries, I can live with that, because I'm like, as long as it's interesting or compelling mysteries, then I'm going to stick with it and want to find out. But when Scott, you mentioned it was on paper, it might have been good on paper. So my first thought was, whoa, I'll bet you this was a really good novel that had been adapted. And I just did a quick search, and yes, it was a book. And I can completely picture this being a good book, because you don't mind something that's just, you know, two people talking and interesting and, oh, here's a little mystery here and there. That's what a good book will do. Like you can just follow it and read it at your leisure and be taken away into those scenes in that world. But it did not translate onto the screen, I didn't think.
Do you remember in the very beginning, I think the ship wasn't actually planning to dock at the station, was it? Because didn't they say something like, I'll see you later or something like that just before it blew up? Yeah, I know it's hard to remember.
It's also one of these things where I feel like the whole conceit doesn't make sense. Like, why do you need a manned beacon in the middle of space? Like, if a computer is in the beacon thing, can tell you that it's safe to go through this particular part of space, then it could just communicate to the people that are coming through. Like it was like, obviously there's some malfunction that was going on, and that's part of the story that maybe is going to get revealed later, that it was a planned malfunction in order to cause the ship to crash or something. But it was like
he didn't seem like he was trying to stop it.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, but like he was trying to stop it, but I see. You know, maybe the whole malfunction that he was trying to stop was a planned malfunction. I mean, I don't know if it was or not, but like it's one of those things. It's just like the whole concept of the lighthouse in space is sort of a needless step that doesn't need to exist in the first place, you know, and yet somehow it's there. And so as an excuse for, okay, well, this is the conceit that we're giving so that we can have the lighthouse man in space, because that's essentially what they've done, is they've taken like, and they even allude to it in the thing, and the guy's like, you know, looking at the picture of the lighthouse kind of tripping out, you know, and it's like, okay, we're going to take this concept of a lighthouse and put it in space, because what's more remote and you know psychosis inducing than being on a little island with a lighthouse? Well, if you're in the middle of space and you're manning a lighthouse, and that's sure to drive you nuts, you know. So
it would. It would.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking like this. I can see why people didn't like this. Mohammed, you said that it didn't have a very high IMDb score, but I could see this again totally working in a book. And I think the bottom line is it just the source material is just not screen worthy.
Yeah.
The source material is a story, a book, and I can't imagine, because based on what we know, having seen the first episode only, presumably, based on what we know, it doesn't matter what the screenwriters did to adapt this story. This is just not like, I can't imagine anything they could have done or rewritten or dialogue they could have changed that would have made this episode much better. It just seems like the source material should have just been left as a book that people could read and have like, this little sci-fi thriller in their mind or something. Yeah.
Could be like maybe the series was inspired by and not trying to actually follow the book, just inspired by it, and then actually like make it have a lot more to it.
I think I think if you make the characters like Stephen, whatever, I can't see because your head's in the
Steppenwolf.
Stephen James, I think if his character would have been like more interesting from the beginning and been like, I want to I like this character. I want to see what happens to him. I want to root for him. All this kind of stuff, and they just didn't do that. Like he's just like, oh, he's just some guy, and it's like I like that he's going the extra mile to stop the beacon from sending the green light when it should be sending the red light. Like that's cool, but I feel if you created a character in the beginning that was like likable and cool and maybe quirky, and maybe he's got a pet cat, or I don't know,
or he's having a cute little argument with his AI machine Bart, right? Something like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I agree with you. I was right there with you, where I was like, wow, that's a bold maneuver for them to make this character not likable from the beginning. And I was just confused by it. I was like, wait, we're not supposed to like the only other real person? That's weird.
Yeah, and then then you introduce the Hetty's character, and she comes on and can throw a mix, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, was I like I was fooled because I liked this guy who I thought was the main character and the protagonist and the good guy, and then now maybe I think she's the bad guy, but now she's the good guy, and you could do a whole thing, and that could be the whole first episode is you sort of like trying to figure out who's the good guy and who's the bad guy, and I think that's there, but by not setting up that you like the Solomon character at all, or do you have any sort of like connection to him as anything more than just a dude manning a station, and that's kind of what they give you, was like he's a dude manning a station trying to do his job. And you learn that there's more to it, but by time you learn that there's more to it, you're already kind of like, I don't really, not that I don't care, I'm not excited to like root for this guy.
It feels like typical, okay. I was just going to say really quickly, it feels like one of those shows where they're like, oh wait, it gets good.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. It gets good later. Okay, well, it's not good right now.
You got to keep us long enough to get to the later.
Yeah.
They did the typical rom-com thing with the guy too, with Halen or whatever his name was, where he kept on saying, "No, that's not what happened," but doesn't actually like lay out. Like, I assume there's a 2-sentence version, even if not detailed, that you can say. But it's a typical rom-com thing. Like, the lady finds out the guy did something stupid. He's like, "Wait, no," and it's like, "Stop saying wait, no, just say what it is."
Yeah, the crumbs were on the bed when I got there. Just anything.
Yeah.
I will say, okay, a couple more notes here. One is the theme song was boring, or the opening theme. I was like, oh, that's it? Oh, yikes. And then I will say that for me, the highlight was right after the opening theme, the scene of her waking up.
Yeah, that was pretty
and
good.
They have that cool derma patch technology. I thought that was cool. And then that made him likable, right? So I'm like, oh, good. He, that's great. He's likable. She seems cool. The acting was good from both sides. They were both cool. And And then the exchange where she says, she was like eating hummus and pita or something like that. And then she's like, when she said, I feel good, oddly great even. I thought that was well written. I thought it was very well delivered. And I warmed up. I was like, oh, this is going to be really cool. I just like the feel and the tone of that. And he says that's the derma. It'll wear off soon. And I was like, cool. We're learning more about the technology in their world. Then they said we're on the other side of Orion, and I was blown away. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. They're on the other side of Orion. I love this. And
Watch out for
then
the Syndicate.
And then they introduced the drone or whatever, and she says, "Is that beta series? Is that beta series?" And she got excited to meet him. And then the beta series kind of like backs away shyly and goes. And I was like, "That's so freaking cute." And I was like totally into it. And then I feel like after that, it just all went downhill. Like it was cute, it was fun, it was interesting. Everything was good for me in that chunk of time. And then after that, nothing.
I agree with that. I liked a little bit when they were searching for the mineral, because I thought there was gonna be some really interesting thing there, but then it was a very anticlimactic. Like, that's it.
She's like, "Oh, look, I found it."
Yeah, okay, I know, right? Yeah.
It wasn't like somebody a trick or a map that she had to go. It was just like, "Oh, look, now I found it."
It was literally in a closet.
Yeah.
You could have checked the closet. You guys didn't check behind doors?
Yeah, right. Well, at first she found it. Remember, she found a piece of it, and she spent exactly 0.2 seconds investigating the piece of it that she did find. She's like, "Oh, is there more? Like, well, there's a chunk right there on the desk." Yeah. And she was like, "Is there more? Like, wait, wait."
Yes, to study something, you don't need, a 5-inch piece is the same as a 1-inch piece. You can still
she had to have the whole bag of it or something. It was just so funny because it was like she literally had found a piece of it, and she's like, "Oh, is this it?" And then she sets it down, and it's like, "Well, where's the rest of it?" Like if you already know what it is, and you're like, "Oh, here's a piece of gold," and I heard that there was 100 pounds of gold. Where's the rest of it? That makes sense because you're like, "Oh, yes. I want the whole 100 pounds of the gold." But she was like interested in what it is because it was some unknown mineral that they wanted to study. So like having the whole 100 pounds of it isn't quite relevant to, but and
the ship that attacked at the end, it was like already there, right? It was just like hanging out. It's not like it arrived. I think it was like in the debris there, just something that turned on, and like, what's happening?
Yeah, I think we're gonna see something about how the whole malfunction explosion of the ship was all sort of like pre-planned sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it was like floating in the debris of the ship. So I think if we decide to watch more, I think we're gonna see something like that.
Yeah, I wanted to like Bartholomew. I wanted to like him because he was really cute at the beginning. He acted all shy and all that. But then when he got a voice, he didn't act shy at all. He was like all emotional and bitter and vengeful.
Oh my God.
And he was so unlikable. I'm like, why did you make a little AI drone so unlikable? Not unlikable like in a fun, cute way, just like in a what's going on here? That's the kind of AI. Why is AI so petty?
If I was her, I'm like, we're turning him back off again, back to the beeps and boops.
It just doesn't make sense to have AI that would be petty. I mean, vengeful or evil, sure, we can picture that. But like, come on.
Well, and the whole and her little AI companion thing was like just sort of like
flavorless.
There wasn't
flavorless.
Yeah, it was just kind of there wasn't much going on there, and then they didn't maybe I missed something, but there was the whole sequence where she goes into the airlock with the guy. Shout out to Fifth Passenger locking someone in an airlock, and she gets locked in there with him.
Mm-hmm,
and they didn't really unless I missed it, I didn't get what happened there. Like, did he plan that she would get locked in there, or did one of the AI lock it?
Bart, that's what I thought.
Bart did it, but then she said, "Okay, Bart, you can let me out. He's not going to escape." I'm like, that we had no indication that that's why Bart locked her in, was to prevent him from coming out. Like, it was just, I mean, unless I missed it too, but it was not.
I missed it too.
I mean, unless it was a double psych out to make, like, she planned it ahead of time to make him think that she was accidentally locked in there when she knew the whole time she wasn't locked in there for
Yeah. So I did another little bit of digging real quick because, I see the 5.4 rating for this show, and there are huge amounts of 10s.
Oh.
Like, there are a lot of people that gave it 10s. There are a lot of people that gave it lower. That's why it's averaging out to whatever you said, like 5 point something. And so what I'm thinking is,
people who love the book.
Right. Exactly. Because my first thought is, how could anybody give this a 10? And I don't mean that in a rude way. I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean, like, 10 means it's the best. I'll never hardly ever give anything a 10. Will that change today? Stick around to find out. But I'll hardly ever give anything a 10. So for this to be a 10, they must be blown away. And the only way I could really see that is, yes, fans of the book that are saying, this is exactly how I pictured it, or this is very true to the book. So it's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted, exactly what I imagined, meaning that just gives more credence to that. To those of us that haven't read the book, it just doesn't translate to the screen very well unless you're already a fan of the book. So my recommendation would be, read the book first.
Yeah.
Love the book, and then watch this, and you'll be like, wow, this is amazing, is what I'm guessing.
Stay tuned for the next episode of Read the First, where we read the first page of a book.
Yeah, the first page. Maybe the first 10 pages, because I would say a chapter, but sometimes chapters are like 50 pages or something. Yeah. The last time I read a book, I think it was maybe during the Clinton administration. I can't even imagine reading who reads book? You like hold it in your hand? Or you get a Nook, right?
Nook.
Anyway, speaking of Nooks, we have Nooks, we have crannies. Muhammad knows where we're going. He's putting down his clipboard. We're going to talk more about.
He's getting warmed up.
We're going to talk more about Beacon 23 and who our favorite character. Muhammad's like, oh shit, I thought we were going to talk about Scott. We are going to talk about Scott Baker here. Finally,
talk about me.
Our favorite
subject. Favorite thing to talk about.
This is the perfect show to have you on for, because, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, it did very much remind me of Fifth Passenger, a film you and I both worked on. You co-wrote it, produced it, directed it, did camera work on it, one-man machine with our good buddy Morgan Laraya, of course. So it was very similar in that it was a sci-fi thriller. It was people trapped in a space vessel, right? We had this strong female lead. There was turmoil from within. There are people being trapped in a it was very much like that.
This was a lighthouse in space, and I often call Fifth Passenger a lifeboat in space.
Whoa.
So lighthouse in space, lifeboat in space, so very, very similar contexts and everything like that. So
but Fifth Passenger was a self-contained film. You could turn it on, you follow the story, it ends, and you go, that was satisfying. That was good. I got a beginning, a middle, and end. I followed the story. Cool characters, great 10 former Star Trek actors in the film, everybody. So go check out Fifth Passenger. By the way, where can they find it?
It's on Amazon, it's on YouTube, it's on Tubi, lots of different places you can watch it for free. Most of the places you watch it for free, you just got to watch some ads with it. That's the trade-off.
Easy.
But
Okay, so everybody make sure to go check that out. Super important. But besides that, you are currently working. By the way, everybody, you haven't seen Scott Baker on here in a while, because this dude is always freaking working. And a couple of his... A couple things he's been working on is Lone Wolf, which is a short film, and Long, Slow Death of a 30-something, which is a feature. Would you like to tell us about those?
I was talking about that last time.
Yeah. Long, Slow Death of a 30-something's a dark comedy written by a good friend of mine, Larry Longstreth, and it's a sequel to Long Slow Death of a 20-something. And Long Slow Death of a 20-something is a movie that you can watch. I'm not sure if it's still on Amazon, but if you seek it out, you can find it. There's a movie that he made a little more than 10 years ago, super low budget, sort of Clerks style movie, and about a bunch of friends they're coming to the end of their 20s, and trying to figure out who they are and find their place in the world. And now this is the sequel 10 years later, and the main character Ben is coming to the end of his 30s and still kind of trying to figure out who he is. And now he's got a son that he's trying to raise, and how do I, how do I teach the son how to be a man and what's right and what's wrong when I'm still trying to figure that stuff out for myself in, conservative small town America. It's funny, it's emotional. There's some fantasy elements to it, and we've been shooting it over the past year and a half in Ohio, here in Los Angeles. We're going to be shooting a segment down in Mexico next year. So I'm the cinematographer on it, but also just been very emotionally invested in the project, and feel like it's Larry's film, but I feel such ownership too of the project, because we've been kind of in the trenches making this low budget film that I feel just like has a lot of heart and comedy and all these good things to it. And
I bet he appreciates the hell out of you for that too, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's definitely one of my closest friends here in LA, and so it's great when you can have like a real friendship with somebody, but also an artistic partnership. And that's kind of what this has been, is he's coming at it from like, this is his story, and a lot of it's kind of semi-autobiographical. And I'm coming at it from the cinematographer side, visually, how I'm trying to interpret what he wants to do into images. And so it's been a lot of fun, and it's been really, really satisfying. And it's so we're gonna be shooting some pickups actually tomorrow here in LA, and it'll be out sometime probably late next year. I wish we were
late this year
on next year. Yeah.
2024.
I wish I wish we were on a quicker schedule on it, but it's just one of those things where you're making something like this where mostly self-funded. We're shooting in little chunks here and there and stuff like that. So, but you can, yeah.
I can't wait for Long Slow Death of an Octogenarian. That's the one I want to see. I don't know how long I got to wait for that one, but
at that point they get rid of the long part.
No. And also, real quick, can you give us a couple quick things on Lone Wolf too, by the way?
Oh yeah, so that's a project that good buddy of mine, Mark Anthony Sepulveda, is producing, and I'll actually be directing it. It's a short film, a werewolf movie, and we shot some little teaser bits of it a couple weeks ago. Our good friend Thomas E. Supernaut is going to be he's doing the makeup for it. He did a werewolf for. So if you go to lone_wolf_short at Instagram, you see some pictures. You can see the werewolf that Tom made, and he's gonna be launching like a crowdfunding type campaign to raise money so that we can shoot the short film, and that'll happen sometime early 2024. Don't know the exact dates on that, but if you check out the Lone Wolf stuff on Instagram, that's where we'll have the updates and stuff like that. It's just a fun little short werewolf movie, 7 or 8 pages, something like that. Nothing cool. Terribly long, but
with Tom Serpent, by the way, who's an Emmy award-winning makeup artist with tons of Star Trek experience under his belt. Well, speaking of belt, it's time for the final 2 questions of the show. That's right. Muhammad is doing the belt. This is his belt move.
It's my belt motion.
It's time for the terrible twos.
Oh boy.
All right. It's the final 2 questions of the show. Question number 1 is, Dr. Mohammed Noor, be honest. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this first episode of Beacon, should be called 2.3, of Beacon 23? I'm just kidding. I'm being so mean.
I mean, I'm not going to go that low. I'm not going to say 2.3, but the number I'd written down right after I watched the show was 4.5. That, there were a couple little things in there. Like there was a little bit of a teaser. There was a little bit of things like that. Some decent elements of character, but it was very unsatisfying in the hour or whatever I was watching. So I'm sorry. Apologies to any of those people who did love it or love the book. Maybe it's just me.
It is just you. Scott's going to blow us away with his score on a scale of 1 to 10. What do you think, Scott?
I think 4.5 is a fair score. I'm tempted to say maybe 4.7, something like that. Yeah, maybe 4.7. I'll say. I'll be generous. I'm feeling generous.
Yeah, I'm feeling generous too. I'm giving it a 3.6, and I did feel like I was being generous because here's the thing that I had to remind myself. And again, no shots fired to any of the writers. I just think that this was not the right thing that would translate from book. Clearly, it just doesn't. For those of us that have never read the book or don't know anything about it, I feel like it just was not the right book to adapt into film or onto TV. But, it's not just about writing. The acting was fine. Cinematography, I thought, was really good.
Yeah.
The 2 or 3 space shots were beautiful. The mention of being behind Orion, I thought that was cool. I mean, there were some other things, that were good. The set design was cool. So 3.6. No offense, but it just it's just nothing for me there.
Do you want me to take it from here?
Well, so here's the big. Go ahead.
So for the purposes of this podcast, we all had to watch Beacon 23. But now that this podcast is over and we're free to move about the internet, Dr. Mohammed Noor, would you watch the second episode?
It's question number 2. Yep.
Yeah. I was trying to say question number 2. I failed.
No, perfect. Continue, please.
Sadly, I would not. I don't plan to. I know it's a shock. Everyone's thinking I can say yes. No, again, if it was on the TV, would I go running out of the room screaming? No. I might change channel if I had the freedom to, but
wow.
Not something I'm going to seek out.
You would not. Okay. Well, Scott Baker, would you of your own volition watch the second episode? Are you going to make it 1-to-1?
I'm on the fence. It's hard to give a definitive answer because like I alluded to earlier, I'm a very curious kind of person, and so if you set up somewhat of a mystery and somewhat of a story, I just want to kind of know what happens to kind of like fill that little curious part of my brain, and so I'm tempted to just like watch at least one more episode to kind of see if I can know what's going on, and maybe it does get better, and maybe there's more to it. I'm tempted
to as a yes.
I think so too. Yeah.
I mean, it's not a strong yes.
But you
definitely
you would, not that you will, but you would.
Yeah. I would. Yeah. I wouldn't run into the room screaming, to use Mohammed's analogy.
All right. It's 1-to-1. This is fun. I get to be the rubber match. All right. That's a baseball term, everybody. It's not something weird. It's an easy no for me. I mean, come on. I could barely watch the first, but I will say one of the good things was that it was an easy watch.
It's true.
Like I didn't feel like I had to take a million notes constantly, and you blink and you miss something juicy. Now maybe I did miss something juicy because I more than blinked a few times. But I will say that was one good thing, was that it wasn't like a difficult watch. It didn't, there wasn't just like a ton of things happening or a ton of names I had to memorize or a ton of characters, so it was very easy.
Did you look at the credits at the end? Do you see who the executive producers were?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you should take a look. There's a familiar name in there.
Glenn Mazzara from Walking Dead.
No, that's not who I was thinking of.
Oh,
you should Google it.
Okay.
It is Glenn Mazzara was one
okay,
of
well, maybe it was
those.
one of the other producers then. Maybe it was
It was Walking Dead, but
no,
that was the one that was one to me that like jumped down. I was like, oh, Glenn Mazzara, like I know.
There's one that would definitely jump out to Ryan.
Oh, okay.
Let's see here. I'm gonna take a quick look. I won't say it because otherwise, if Muhammad wanted it said out loud, he would have said it. Lena. Oh.
Yeah.
So anyway, loved it. Great
Moving
show.
on.
one of the best of the year so far. Anyway, that's it for us. So it's 2 no's and a yes. And we're going to have to move on. But if you'd like us to review a show, in the comments below, type WTF and the show and where we can watch it. So in this case, you would say WTF Beacon 23 on Amazon Prime or on MGM Plus. And we would have done it. Look at Scott smiling and laughing.
Oh, Lena Headley. Yeah, that's her.
There we are.
Yeah.
So anyway, this one's not going to air. That's it. That's it.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is this podcast was fucking amazing, just like Beacon 23.
This podcast was a love fest for a fantastic show.
This podcast is how you do a podcast, not how the scientists do science in Beacon 23.
And that's what I've been trying to teach everybody all along. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. We really appreciate y'all. Remember what Mr. Michael Kenyon Rosenberg likes to say.
Don't forget to be an organ donor, and don't forget to watch the first of things.
All right, everybody. Freeze frame like you're the third AI walking in.
That shitty smile and pretend that